Maybe for the 20th, we have out in the garden. Out in the garden early in the morning, see the little lettuce growing in a row. Then along came the rabbits with nibbly little habits. Now there are no more lettuce growing in a row. Let's take a look. Let's do Alice meets Humpty Dumpty. Here is an episode from the book Through the Looking Glass by Lewis Carroll. In the book, a sequel to Carroll's masterpiece, Alice's Adventure in Wonderland, Alice steps through a mirror into a curious and fantastic world. In her travels, she gets involved in a giant chess game. Along the way, she meets a number of interesting characters, including this well-known figure of nursery rhyme fame. Alice meets Humpty Dumpty. The egg got larger and larger and more human. When she had come within a few yards of it, she saw it had eyes and a nose and a mouth. And when she had come close to it, she saw clearly that it was Humpty Dumpty himself. It couldn't be anyone else, she said to herself. I am certain of it, if his name were written all over his face. Humpty Dumpty was sitting with his legs crossed, like a Turk, on the top of a high wall. Such a narrow one that Alice quite wondered how he could keep his balance. And as his eyes were steadily fixed in the opposite direction, and he didn't take a least note of her, she thought he must be a stuffed figure after all. And how exactly like an egg he is, she said aloud, standing with her hands ready to catch him, for she was every moment expecting him to fall. It's very provoking, Humpty Dumpty said after a long silence, looking away from Alice as he spoke, to be called an egg, very. I said you looked like an egg, sir, Alice gently explained. And some eggs are very pretty, you know, she added, hoping to turn her remark into a sort of a compliment. Some people, said Humpty Dumpty, looking away from her as usual, no one have no more sense than a baby. Alice did not know what to say to this. It wasn't at all like conversation she thought, as he never said anything to her. In fact, his last remark was evidently addressed to a tree. So she stood and softly repeated to herself, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty Dumpty in his place again. That last line is much too long for the poem, she added, almost out loud, forgetting that Humpty Dumpty would hear her. Don't stand chattering to yourself like that, Humpty Dumpty said, looking at her for the first time. But tell me your name and your business. My name is Alice, but it's a stupid name enough, Humpty Dumpty interrupted impatiently. What does it mean? Must a name mean something? Alice asked. Of course it must, Humpty Dumpty said with a sort of laugh. My name means the shape I am, and a good, handsome shape it is too. With a name like yours, you might be a shape almost. What do you sit out here? Why do you sit out here all alone? Said Alice, not wishing to begin an argument. Why, because there's nobody with me, cried Humpty Dumpty. Do you think I don't know the answer to that? Ask another. Don't you think you'd be safer down on the ground? Alice went on, not with any idea of making another riddle, but simply in her good-natured anxiety for the queer creature. That wall is so very narrow. What tremendously easy riddles you ask, Humpty Dumpty drawled out. Of course, I don't think so. Why, if ever I did fall off, which there's no chance of, but if I did. Here he paused and pursed up his lips and looked so solemn and grand that Alice could hardly help but laughing. If I did fall, he went on, the king has promised me. Ah, you may turn pale if you like. The king has promised me, with his very own mouth, to send all of his horses and all of his men, Alice inquired, rather unwisely. There's Humpty Dumpty and little Alice. Karina, baby, your name means princess. If you were to sign it, you would do a banner. It means princess. Your name means Princess Flower. And if you were to sign Flower, that's how you would do it. Because your name is Karina Violet. You are my Princess Flower. I love your name. Now I declare that's too bad, Humpty Dumpty cried, breaking into a sudden passion. You've been listening at doors and behind trees and down chimneys, or you couldn't have known it. I haven't, indeed, Alice said very gently. It's in a book. Ah, well, that's my right. Such things in a book, Humpty Dumpty said in a calmer tone. That's what you call a history of England, that is. Now take a good look at me. I'm one that has spoken to the king. I am mayhap, you'll never know, you'll never see such another. And so, to show you I'm not proud, you may shake hands with me. And he groaned almost from ear to ear as he leaned forward, and as nearly as possible fell off the wall in doing so, and offered Alice his hand. She watched him a little anxiously as she took it. If he smiled much more, the ends of his mouth might meet behind, she thought. And then I don't know what would happen to his head. I'm afraid it would come off. Yes, all of the horses and all of his men, Humpty Dumpty went on. They'll pick me up again in a minute. They would. However, this conversation is going on a little too fast. Let's go back to the last remark, but one. I'm afraid I can't quite remember it, Alice said very politely. In that case, we start fresh, said Humpty Dumpty, and it's my turn to choose the subject. He talked about it just as if it were a game, thought Alice. And here's a question for you. How old did you say you were? Alice made a short calculation and said 7 years and 6 months. Wrong, Humpty Dumpty explained triumphantly. You never said a word like it. I thought you meant how old are you, Alice explained. If I'd meant that, I'd have said it, he said. Alice didn't want to begin another argument, so she said nothing. 7 years and 6 months, Humpty Dumpty repeated thoughtfully. An uncomfortable sort of age. Now, if you ask my advice, I'd have said leave off at 7, but it's too late now. I never asked advice about growing, Alice said indignantly. Too proud, the other inquired. Alice felt even more indignant at this suggestion. I mean, she said, that one can't help growing older. One can't, perhaps, said Humpty Dumpty, but 2 can. With proper assistance, you might have left off at 7. What a beautiful belt you've got on, Alice suddenly remarked. They had had quite enough of the subject of age, she thought, and if that really were to take turns in changing subjects, it was her turn now. At least, she corrected herself on second thought. A beautiful cravat. I should have said so. No, a belt. I mean, I beg your pardon? She added in dismay, for Humpty Dumpty looked thoughtfully offended, and she began to wish she hadn't chosen that subject. If only I knew. There's Humpty and Alice. She's a year and 2 months older than you in this book. She thought to herself, which was his neck and which was his waist. Evidently, Humpty Dumpty was very angry, though. He said nothing for a minute or two. When he did speak again, it was in a deep growl. It is a most provoking thing, he said at last, when a person doesn't know a covert from a belt. I know it's very ignorant of me, Alice said. It is a humble tone that Humpty Dumpty relented. It's a covert, child, and a beautiful one. As you say, it's a present from the king, from White King and Queen. It is? Really? Alice, said Alice, quite pleased to find that she had chosen a good subject after all. They gave it to me, Humpty Dumpty continued thoughtfully as he crossed his knee over the other and clasped his hands round it. They gave it to me for an on-birthday present. I beg your pardon, Alice said, with a puzzled air. I'm not offended, said Humpty Dumpty. I mean, what is an on-birthday present? A present given when it isn't your birthday, of course, Humpty Dumpty answered. Alice considered a little. I like birthday presents best, she said at last. You don't know what you're talking about, cried Humpty Dumpty. How many days are there in a year? 375, said Alice. And how many birthdays have you? 1. And if you take 1 from 375, what remains? 374, of course. Humpty Dumpty looked doubtful. I'd rather see that you done on paper, he said. Alice couldn't help smiling. She took out her Mendorium book and worked the sum for him. 365 minus 1 equals 364. Humpty Dumpty took the book and looked at it carefully. That seems to be done right, he began. You're holding it upside down, Alice interrupted. To be sure I was, Humpty Dumpty said gaily. As she turned it round for him, I thought it looked a little queer. As I was saying, that seems to be done right, though I haven't time to look it over thoroughly just now. And that seems that there are 364 days when you might get on birthday presents, and only 1 for birthday presents, you know. Oh. So Humpty Dumpty told her an on-birthday present might be better. But it goes, Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. All the king's horses and all the king's men couldn't put Humpty together again. And with him being on such a narrow ledge, you could see why he might fall off. Let's do... Oh, the grand old Duke of York had 10,000 men. He marched them up to the top of the hill, and then he marched them down again. And when they were up, and when they were down, and when they were only halfway up, they were neither up nor down. Karina, baby, I hope that you are enjoying your day. I hope that you are having a good day. I hope that you're well fed. I hope that you're safe. I hope that you're warm. I hope that you're comforted. I hope you know how much you are just loved. I hope that you are being yourself, your authentic self, true to yourself. I love you so incredibly much, and I just hope that you're having a good day today, baby. I miss you, and I miss you so much, and I would be with you every single second of every single day if I could be just like I was. I love you, honey.